Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review. This show was recorded on May 30th, 2023. I'm Aspet Bedrosian and I'm here together with Hovik Manucharian. Here are the major topics we'll touch on today. Armenia celebrated May 28th, 2 days ago, and a new political movement, Mother Armenia, Mair Hayastan, was announced. Let's talk a little bit about that. Aliyev continues to make military threats and Pashinyan continues to concede. There's seemingly no end to Armenian concessions yet, so obviously the topic remains salient for us as well. On May 28, Erdogan was re-elected to another term as president of Turkey. What does that mean for Armenia? And finally, it seems like Armenia is kissing the CSTO goodbye and saying hello to NATO. Is this for real or just pipe dreams from Pashinyan? To talk about these issues, we have with us Dr. Arthur Khachigian, who is an international relations expert from Stanford University, specializing in intervention. He currently teaches at the Russian Armenian University in Yerevan. Hello and welcome back to the show, Arthur.
Hello, good to be back. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi, Arthur. Thanks
Hi.
for taking the time to talk to us. I know you've been doing a lot of interviews today, and it's late at night
Thank
for
you.
you, but I appreciate your time. This past week was May 28th. We in Armenia celebrated the First Republic Day. Obviously, it's all of these celebrations are, especially in the month of May, are a little bit of bittersweet nowadays. But
Right.
I was watching the announcement from an organization called Mother Armenia or Mair Hayastan that was being founded, and I saw your face there. It's apparently a political movement, and that's what the organizers call it. What's your role in that organization? What can you tell us about, the movement, the symbolism of May 28th? What does that mean for you?
Well, based on what the leader said, Andrei Niktoryanyan, he wants to join all forces or healthy forces in Armenia to prevent the dismantlement of our statehood, which is happening in front of our eyes. And he said, we're not here to seize power. This is not a political party. This is a people's movement, and we welcome anyone who wants to join us. And that was my motivation in joining. And I said that for me, this is not a political enterprise. I have no political ambitions. It's a question of being told that, you guys probably heard, right, some of the statements this guy made recently. He said, we don't have, how do you say this? Something like a lease agreement or like a mortgage.
I guess a deed or a cadastre. Yeah.
That's right, a deed. That's right. That's a good translation, Hovik. So we don't have a deed to live in Armenia. They can ask us to move out. And and I said, I am not a political man. I have no political ambitions. But when a leader of our little republic, when we hear that, we says things like we don't have a deed to live in Armenia, and we have to forget Arat, and we have to tolerate the next page in the Armenian genocide that we're about to see. I can't stay home, and I want to join everyone, and I call on everyone else, all those people who have a healthy reason and a good head on their shoulders, and I don't want to see Armenia disappear. Irrespective of any political opinions, this doesn't matter anymore. I call on all of them to join us, and I am going to make every effort to talk to other people here in Armenia, political leaders, organizations, to turn this into a really popular movement. We really need to stop worrying about politics right now, come together and understand that either we do something now or literally in a few weeks we will have 120,000 people massacred and partly deported to Armenia. And then this is only the beginning. It's only the first bit. Things are going to continue. Oh yes, and this famous phrase he said, we have to forget about Ararat and talk about Aragats. So I have a message for Mr. Atomi Goyan. I think his wife or his associate or friend was very, very active 5 years ago. I would love to hear from them because apparently Mr. Goyan now has to change the title of his movie from Ararat to Aragats. By the way, there was a suggestion to rename our foreign minister. Who, I have nothing against him personally. He seems like a decent guy, but there was a suggestion to change his name from Ararat Mirzoyan to Aragats Mirzoyan. We also
Yeah, I thought about that too, but I think even that would be a favor for him. Maybe like I don't know. Is there like a small hill in the boondocks of Armenia that we can sort of refer to?
No, but really, we have to understand. I mean, it's hard to believe what we have come to. In one of my interviews, I said, there are these tactics when people want to slowly drive you crazy. It's called gaslighting, or slowly poison you. So we were slowly poisoned and gaslit to bring us from where we were 5 years ago to now. If anyone told us that this is what we were going to face 5 years after the revolution, we would not have believed that person. It's unbelievable what we were brought to. And I would be really curious to hear from people like Serge Tankian, who is busy cursing out 15-year-old girls. Very manly, clearly dignified, manly thing to do. And Ms. Arsine or Arpine, whatever her name was, I would love to hear from them. They encouraged this. They said that they were going to move to Armenia. I'm wondering where they are right now. Probably enjoying a drink in Malibu or something, having plunged us into this tragedy. Don't they have any words of regret about what they did? Don't they have any apology to offer? We're a nation that never takes responsibility for anything. It's very frustrating.
Arthur, how is this movement, Meir Hayastan, different from the Homeland Salvation movement of almost 2 years ago when everybody was demonstrating, running for government in 2021, etc.?
I know very little about domestic politics. My understanding is that 2 years ago, the opposition was the so-called official opposition, people who were in the parliament, parliament deputies, and there were more traditional political forces. This one, the people I know do not have political affiliation. Some of them do. Mr. Tevanyan is a member of the parliament, is an MP from a certain fraction, but I believe that he is trying to run this independently, and that he is going to run this as an independent candidate. So again, my thing is that I have no political ambitions whatsoever. I'm not interested in any political movements, but this is not about politics. It's about saving whatever is left of our country. We have like 10% of historical Armenia left, and we're going to lose this one also if we don't act.
Is Meir Hayastan planning any activities in the streets, protests, other?
I don't think so. And it's kind of like it's been done, it's been done. There's something about it. People are not ready to take to the streets. They're just not. I think for right now, we're trying to consolidate all the different forces in Armenia, talk to other candidates, politicians, public figures, artists, scientists, kind of create a united front. And it's hard to see. I mean, it's hard to say where this is going to go. But at this point, like I said, it's not a movement with any kind of political purpose at this point.
We heard similar statements from the organizers of the resistance movement last year, where they said, "Oh, this is not a struggle over who's going to be in power. It's a struggle for Armenia's existence." But to me, both of those are the same thing. And I think it sounds a little bit weird when you say that, you don't want to enter politics, but you do. And why not? I realize you're not a political party, but why not have a set of principles, like a manifesto that can be adopted by all parties in the political spectrum?
Right. I'm not opposed to it, and I will certainly convey your message to the leader of this group. I'm not opposed to that at all. I think the message he was trying to get across was that the purpose was to get rid of the person and his entourage, this group that brought us to the worst catastrophe in the last 100 years of Armenian history. He's just trying to our main purpose was to get him out. But of course, having a political mission, a political program later on that we can work on together with other parties or other groups of people who are in Armenia. I think that's a logical next step. But I think right now what we're trying to convey is that this is not about politics. It's about saving our country from total destruction and saving us from this disaster that came to power 5 years ago.
But in practice, people have to align behind somebody. So the fact that there's an agenda to remove the current leadership, but there's not an agenda of who will take over to continue the leadership, is a problem because people do not see who they would be following, and that's a major issue, I think.
I understand, and if it were up to me, I would propose, and I did propose, some kind of a coalitional group, or some kind of like a national kind of reconciliation committee, if you will, that would draw on people from any kind of political group or social group and bring together competent people with a very pragmatic agenda to pull us out of this crisis. I really think that bringing together some kind of a coalition would really increase the chances for this movement.
Arthur, last question on this topic. It sometimes feels like we're working against a ticking time bomb if the goal of the opposition and those similar-minded people, if the goal is to remove Pashinyan, because after he signs, it seems very little that we can do, to roll back anything that's been signed and put on paper. So, do you have any ideas of timeframes? When is the deadline for your project and your goal? And when do you see that basically picking up? When do you see your organization itself picking up pace and being more active and so forth?
Well, I take your point. It's an important point. Of course, the bomb is ticking. Clearly, he's already agreed on many crucial things, but as you can see, Aliyev's appetite is only growing. So there were some things he asked for that even this group said no to. More importantly, Aliyev gave an ultimatum to the population of Karabakh, and it's just spectacular how Europe and the West and Russia altogether ignored it completely. He's clearly threatening these people with ethnic cleansing, and nobody cares. And the European representative said, you know what, just negotiate with them. It's between you and them, which is the most callous, disgusting statement that he could have made, especially compared to how they treat Ukraine. So, the bomb is ticking. What can be done? I mean, yes, there's a need to expedite things. At the same time, there's a need to not fall on one's face, because like you said, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, during the opposition rallies, there was something that didn't quite work, and I don't think that this group wants to repeat these mistakes. So at this point, I just I don't know enough about the methods and the next steps, but I said this many times, I'm willing to stand by anyone who can help rid us of this, to use the English expression, rid us of this turbulent priest, meaning this person, and get us out of this horrific crisis. We are in a falling plane, and the pilot refuses to open the door and get out. We can't take him out of the cabin.
Okay, thank you for introducing us to Meir Hayastan. Arthur, early in May, Aliyev demanded that Pashinyan must say Artsakh is Azerbaijan. After a couple of weeks of dancing around the verbiage to make sure that the Armenian people were asleep at the wheel, he said things like 86,600 kilometers, or that the 86,600 included Artsakh, etc. Pashinyan finally last week came around and basically said that Artsakh is Azerbaijan. Right. He also threw in a number of territories in Armenia which Aliyev has been demanding as enclaves belonging to Azerbaijan. Some news reports indicate that the Pashinyan government has already agreed to this behind the backs of the people, and they're not telling the Armenian people right now officially. We talked about a bunch of these things last week. So, except for the ruling civil contract circles, every Armenian organization condemned Pashinyan's recognition in response to Aliyev. There were reactions from former presidents. The former presidents of Artsakh, both Catholicuses, condemned these statements. The parliamentary opposition also, as well as the non-parliamentary parties and movements. The parliamentary opposition stated that they have 5 to 6 months to stop Pashinyan before he signs Artsakh away, and that they're working on new plans. They expect that Artsakh will essentially be purged of its Armenian population once Pashinyan signs. So, Arthur, how can the visceral, worldwide Armenian reaction to Pashinyan's capitulant response to Aliyev be harnessed to bring about change to the Armenian government? What can we do to harness this energy right now?
Well, I think we have the consulate, we have the embassy, right? Los Angeles, Washington. I know some people tried to organize rallies in front of them. I think putting pressure on those things might, those institutions might help. But I mean, I know who, for example, who is running our embassy in Washington right now. It's very funny to even think about that. That's famous strategic statement that Turkey will not get involved in the war. And that person, what amazes me about these people is that they have no sense of dignity. Like, if I made a mistake like this, I mean, I don't believe in suicide, but I would probably consider it. I mean, I think it's a big sin to do it, and I certainly don't want anyone to do it. But I don't know how I would live with myself after this. These people have no problem. They have absolutely no problem. They admitted that they ruined everything and they failed at everything. And this is a tragic moment in our history. Like, literally, this is 1920. We're nearing the Alexandropol Treaty. So, having said that, they always find someone else to blame, and they are like they're refusing to take any responsibility, and they continue doing what they're doing, and they keep attacking people who try to talk sense to them. So this is what's unbelievable. Another thing that's unbelievable is that they managed to hypnotize a part of our population, and a lot of people are more concerned with the former rulers coming back and corruption coming back than with the murder of 120,000 of their compatriots. I don't know that has ever happened in any country of the world. So this is pretty unprecedented. As to what the diaspora can do, I think, first of all, you should, well, you and or we, I'm kind of part of both Armenia and diaspora. We should try to find a way to silence people like Losi Kiso and all that, street junk that's talking on YouTube and other channels. And we should rediscover dignity. We should rediscover reason. Armenians were not this kind of people. Now we have trash, street trash, taking control of our minds, talking on YouTube. Those influencers, they took full advantage of the total degradation of humanity and social networks. I know I sound like an old man, but it's true. They took full advantage of it. So I think we should consolidate all the healthy forces and silence his followers, his sect members. This is a cult. They are cult members, and put pressure on the diplomatic missions all over the world. Yes, they can beat up people and they can spit at people in Yerevan, but they cannot do it abroad. And you should drive that message home for them, I think.
We wanted you to help us understand the logic of this so-called leader, because in the parliament on Wednesday, he continued making idiotic statements. He said that as you said, you already mentioned, for thousands of years, we haven't had a deed to our house. At any point, there are 4 to 5 countries that can come and tell us to get out. So what I'm trying to do, he basically said, is obtain a bulletproof deed that then will ensure our survival in this region. Very dark and comical at the same time stuff. Why does Pashinyan think that Turks must validate our existence in our own homelands in the form of a so-called deed to our sovereignty?
Well,
what does that even mean? I mean, I can't even comprehend what that means. Like, do other countries have deeds?
Analyzing these ravings is highly counterproductive. As you know, when someone has nothing to say, they usually try to, use metaphors or allegories or use this kind of colorful language just to cover it up.
Did you mean to say bullshit?
Well, that's the American way of saying it, BS. A pile of BS to cover up the fact that they have nothing to say. They've ruined everything. Obviously, it's a ridiculous analogy. And if anybody thinks that signing a piece of paper is going to defend us against Turkey, I actually did a little bit of my own research. Between 1918 and 1920, there were 10 agreements signed between Armenia and Turkey. 8 of them were violated by Turkey. So, and then we have the example of the Minsk agreements that were also violated, and France and Germany had no shame, saying that they were just trying to win time and just trying to trick Russia. So if anybody thinks that a piece of paper is going to protect you, you should not deal with international relations. And you clearly cannot be Armenian, because Armenians of all people know what happens when you trust pieces of paper and trust foreign guarantees of your security.
I mean, the joke in all of this is that in 2022, last year, Pashinyan's party wanted to pass a law. I think they succeeded. I just couldn't find it before the show. That would criminalize casting doubt on Armenia's territorial integrity and inviolability of Armenia's borders. And, Armenia's borders are pretty well defined. Even Nikol himself has alleged that sort of due to the law on territorial administrative divisions, which defines all the Marzes and all the regions in Armenia. We have basically ignored Artsakh. But at the same time, we have laws defining the Armenian territory. We have people, we have businesses who get actually deeds from the government to have land on those laws. And the purpose of the government is to protect those lands. But now, basically, all that is in the air. And even without this law that would prosecute anyone casting doubt on Armenia's territorial integrity, basically the law stipulates and the constitution stipulates that any changes to Armenia's borders would have to be done by a referendum. Do you believe that, if we talk about the referendum approach, I don't think that at this stage the Armenians would be willing to go out and actually vote for new borders that are sort of crippling them potentially for centuries.
I don't think he's going to ask.
What else is he going to do to the psyche of these people to sort of make them more, subservient and pliable?
They're pretty subservient to as pliable as they are. A lot of people, I mean, not in Yerevan. He's not as popular in Yerevan. Some people say his ratings dropped to like 20-25%. So maybe there is a chance to get rid of this tragedy. This is a national tragedy that we have on our hands. I don't think he's going to do a referendum. I think he's just going to sign, and then his cult members are going to vote for whatever he signs in the parliament.
I mean, if it's illegal, it's going to make it illegal. Yeah. There will be no mandate for whatever he signs. Yes, the Azeris will be able to force it upon Armenia at the current time, but it will not be, for the long term, there will be no legal basis for it.
I know,
but yeah, I guess the eventual plan is just like the Treaty of Sevres or whatever. Maybe 100 years later, Armenians will agree to the new borders. Until then, Azerbaijanis will be on those lands. So let's go to some more idiocy from Pashinyan. On Wednesday, Aliyev and Pashinyan flew to Moscow. We all saw the scenes. It was an unpleasant back and forth between Pashinyan in his broken Russian and Aliyev trying to argue about sort of bullet points in their discussions. At that summit, Aliyev basically, this was the first time that Aliyev was allowed to participate, and it was done because Armenia did not use its power of veto, by the way. So in that summit, Aliyev, sitting in front of Pashinyan, called Artsakh citizens of Azerbaijan and said that Pashinyan has recognized Artsakh as part of Azerbaijan. Therefore, there is no such thing as a Lachin corridor. And there was no reaction from Pashinyan, who was just sort of blinking. The only reaction from Pashinyan came when he talked about Zangezur corridor. And he got sort of agitated because Aliyev used the term corridor. Anyway, nothing was signed. And there were some bilateral meetings between Pashinyan and Putin and Aliyev and Putin, as well as a trilateral meeting between the three of them. But that only lasted 20 minutes. Kommersant had reported that 2 new documents would be signed, a new trilateral statement and one about unblocking transport routes. Nothing was signed. Is it your opinion as well that nothing major happened in Moscow? Do you feel it's possible that in the next summit, or the very next one, which is in Brussels, I believe, there will be something signed? How far are we from the point of no return?
I think what this means, there's a theory out there that, well, first of all, you can't take this person seriously. You can't even analyze him. These are just ravings. You have no idea what's happening in his head. But I think what happened is that they conceded Karabakh. They conceded the enclaves. They already said that. But Aliyev was not satisfied. He wants the corridor. He's a bully. He hates us. He grew up hating Armenians because at the time we occupied 7 of the regions of Azerbaijan. So he hates us, and he's going to go all the way. So even after giving up Karabakh and giving up the enclaves, he's still not satisfied. He wants Azeris to come back to Armenia, and he wants his corridor, and that's why the negotiations didn't go further than this. But knowing these people, this group, and their leader, I wouldn't put it past him that he might even make concessions on those fronts.
So after coming back from Moscow, Aliyev's rhetoric against Artsakh increased. Last Friday, Aliyev said there won't be a third invitation to Baku for Artsakh representatives to talk about so-called integration. He was referring to the previous 2 demands, where he basically said, come to Baku and we can't guarantee that, we will not arrest you, but, essentially surrender. So the wording got even more troubling and precise this week. Aliyev basically said, among other things, Everyone now accepts our position, including Armenia. Therefore, there is no such thing as Artsakh. All the state elements and so forth must be dismantled. He said that Arayik Harutyunyan, president of Artsakh, must surrender in person. He said that the Artsakh government must be dissolved, and only after people appeal and ask for forgiveness will Aliyev consider amnesty. Of course, we know what that means. He also threatened Armenia. He said, we can see, it's like this evil maniac. He says, we can see villages from Armenia, so Armenians should be careful. He was talking from Lachin, so, you can see the village of Kornizor and surrounding villages. How would you evaluate this threat? Is it just sort of trying to make it seem like, things are dire to force Armenia to sign, or to help Pashinyan convince Armenians to sign something?
I think it's quite possible that he would try to launch a military attack and start purging Armenians from Karabakh. I think it's unbelievably shameful that the United States and Europe and Russia, none of these countries are willing to put any real pressure on him, because they all need him.
Yeah, none of them responded. None of them made an official statement responding to this.
This, after the Minsk group said this question has to be negotiated, cannot be solved by force. As you can see, the West never ceases to play with naive Armenians. We're just so naive. We're like children. We keep falling for the same fairy tale that there's justice in the world, there's the civilized West, that there's law, there's norms, the Treaty of Sèvres, all these fairy tales we love so much. So when we're trying to convince people that it's dangerous to pursue this policy, that the West is not going to stand by us, in the meanwhile we're ruining our relationship with Russia and helping Turkey and Azerbaijan isolate us. When we were saying this, we were cursed out on social media, we were attacked, we were called Russophiles, etc. So watch now the representative of the European community just say that, you deal with it. Yeah, you can get massacred, whatever. Go deal with it. Talk to Aliyev. We have no part of. We want no part of this. We're not going to give you any guarantees. We're not going to impose sanctions. There's going to be no action is going to be taken on part of Europe or America or Russia. So this is another lesson of realpolitik, but it's all in vain, because Armenians will never learn it. We're just genetically naive when it comes to international relations. We just can't get this.
All right, let's turn our attention over to Turkey for a moment, where, as expected, on May 28, Erdogan won the presidential elections with just over 52% of the vote to Kılıçdaroğlu's just under 48%. Nationalist Party leader Sinan Oğan's endorsement appears to have provided the needed boost for Erdogan to overcome his opponent. During the campaign, especially in round two, the Armenian-Azerbaijani issue became more of an issue where both sides tried to outdo each other as to who could be more pro-Azerbaijani and anti-Armenian. Their foreign minister, Çavuşoğlu, stated that there will be a Zangezur corridor, while Kılıçdaroğlu, who in phase one had said he didn't want a corridor through Zangezur, now reversed his course. So now everyone wants to pave over Syunik and build their Panturanic highway. So Arthur, what can Armenia expect under a new Erdogan term?
More of the same. Everybody knows this guy's hell-bent on recreating the Ottoman Empire, but this time, having destroyed Western Armenia, now he's going to destroy Eastern Armenia, because this time he wants to turn east. Everyone knows about it. All the Western diplomats acknowledge it. No one wants to do anything. When it comes to Russia invading Ukraine, everybody, gets up and condemns it and provides unprecedented military aid. When it comes to Turkey invading Armenia and building a new empire, nobody cares. Nobody. The double standards, as usual, hypocrisy as usual, but that's what international relations is based on. I think we're going to expect more of the same. I think clearly Aliyev was emboldened by Erdogan's re-election. Russia is going to continue to play games with them also, because Russia wants them. The West is going to do the same. So, fortunately, no good is going to come out of this for us, I fear.
Should we expect the Turkish-Armenian so-called normalization charade to continue? Do you think it'll be on the back burner at this point, or will it be prioritized by Erdogan?
Well, I think it will be prioritized in a way that Armenians will have to close down the Nemesis monument, and then they'll have to close down Tsarnakhobert, probably close down the Genocide Museum. And the thing is, nobody here will care. If you disconnect Yerevan from Instagram and TikTok, you will have a revolution. I mean, honestly, if you want people to take to the streets, just like block Netflix or YouTube or TikTok and Instagram. People will take to the streets in masses. But the fact that we're forced to now just kind of swallow the fact that Turkey wants us to forget the genocide, forget Mount Ararat, and all these horrific things that were suggested to us, and no one took to the streets. People were dancing 5 days ago. I mean, I posted a video. We have like the next page of our genocide happening in front of us, and people are
And people are
dancing.
dancing at the cascade.
I posted that. You saw
Yeah, I
that.
saw that.
People were dancing. I have it's like a mass hypnosis or like mass madness. I have no explanation for this. For the last 100 and something years, 120 years, we lived with the memory of what happened to, Armenians in Western Armenia under Abdul Hamid, Zaytun, Sassoon, Adana, Kilikia, Van, all those things meant something for us. We talked about it. Now we're forced to like not talk about it, forget it all, not expect an apology, and close down the monument. And no one is like feeling indignant about it. I have no idea what happened to our people. Maybe Hovik has some ideas.
Your response sort of made me choke on my tea, but in reality, I can't explain, and I will. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast pro bono for 2.5 years, trying to explain to myself and anyone who will listen. But during the week, let's talk about another topic, which is some plays that Armenia seems to be doing around, CSTO and NATO. During the week, the defense minister, Suren Palpikan, opted out of the CSTO meeting, which was being held, I believe, in Sochi. Instead, he sent like a very low-level official. According to the ruling party sources, he did not attend for technical reasons, not having anything to do with politics. Of course, the Russian defense ministers did not agree or did not understand that explanation, saying that Armenia's participation in CSTO is important. And we also know that Pashinyan has in the past said that he would not rule out leaving the CSTO. And at the same time, we had a flurry of visitors last week, one after another from NATO countries. A U.S. defense official visited, NATO officials directly, the Deputy Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs and Security Policy in NATO, and a UK Parliamentary Undersecretary whose mandate is also security, announced that Armenia and NATO are starting a strategic dialogue, quote unquote. What is the likelihood of an Armenian exit from CSTO and potentially joining NATO? I know in the past whoever we talked to said we can't envision this happening, but can we envision it now with sort of new details in front of us?
Number one, it was this group's intention from the beginning to discredit Russia, ruin the relationship with Russia. They succeeded. The war ensued. We came to this disaster. They don't make any apologies for it. They keep doing the same. It's more of the same. Number two, if you want to think about the future in NATO, think of Georgia and think of Ukraine right now. These are some very good examples of what may happen to us, but we're not even as important as Georgia or Ukraine. We're much, much less important to them. And another thing that's different is that we have a NATO country that is our arch enemy, that is bent on destroying us. The other countries do not have such a country inside NATO. The only one that does is Greece. And even Greece is having a hard time managing Turkey's appetite. We're not even Greece. And it might take decades before we even ever apply for NATO membership. And we're not even going to get there because the way things are going, we might not even last 5 years. So it's just typical of this group. They know they ruined everything. Everyone can see it, but they refuse to recognize it, and they double down on their idiocy. They double down on their non-existent foreign policy. This is why I'm saying I don't care what your politics are and what group you're part of. We need to get together all those people who have reason and who have a healthy judgment and the competency to get us out of this rut, because we may lose our country if we don't do it now.
Arthur, we frequently use Russia and CSTO interchangeably, and we know that besides the nuclear umbrella that Russia provides Armenia, Armenia is also reliant on cheap energy from Russia. And of course, weapons, which right now is questionable. How much are we getting from Russia? But in the midst of all these news about CSTO and NATO, there was another news item that caught my attention, which is that the United States wants to test the feasibility of using small modular nuclear reactors in Armenia. This would be US technology, and we don't know what strings would be attached. But to me, this seems to be a way to address the Armenia's big dependency on Russian energy, on Russian gas specifically. What are your thoughts in general about the West basically replacing yet another dependence Armenia has on Russia with potentially dependence on Armenia will have on the West?
It will not. It will not replace anything. And it's very strange for me to hear this because the West was opposed to Armenia having its nuclear power plant in the past. Why did they reverse this so quickly? Probably just to trick us. I mean, we have this tendency of being very naive and believing silly promises. So maybe it's just another empty promise that they will break, and then just whatever is left of Armenia is going to be connected to the Turkish grid. And we'll be told, just like the Karabakh people are told, oh, just deal with Ankara. It's none of our business. You go deal with them. So we'll go back in the 19th century begging Europe and the West to help us, while Europe and the West is busy buying gas and oil from Baku and working with Turkey to contain Russia, as usual. So nothing really changes. What is amazing is how we don't understand this game. This is the same game that they've been playing with us for 200 years. And for some reason, we don't get it. That's the surprising part.
Let's wrap up our topics here. I'd like to ask each of you if there's something on your mind this past week that you would like to share. Arthur, any thoughts?
Well, we live in a very strange world. The world has taken a definite turn 2 years ago. It's a new world where power decides everything. There are no norms anymore, no law. And it's a strange condition that our country is in. And I just hope that we can wake up whatever is left of our people and the healthy part of our population, because this is all very, very strange, the condition that we find ourselves. If we don't wake up, there will be no Armenia. So the dreams of thousands of years, that Armenia had will be all for nothing. So I really hope that we wake up soon, because we don't have a lot of time left.
Hovig, what's on your mind?
I just want to underscore the importance of Artsakh to us as a people, as both for the security of Armenia as a state and for our identity as Armenians. And if we lose Artsakh, it's going to change everything. I sometimes fear that we will be treated, and we will be okay with being treated as maybe at best, like what Istanbul Armenians are treated as, unwanted citizens of Turkey. I think it's important to spend any resource or any energy you have today. I know it's painful, but there are people under direct threat of being murdered and being erased. I know it's painful, but I would encourage that every waking moment of Armenians be occupied by thinking about and trying to act on the interests of Artsakh and the Armenians there. Just last week there was last bell for education, and these students, even the graduates, they can't foresee how they're going to go to Armenia to get their college education. And some people, I see complain about third world, sort of first world problems, even here in Armenia. But we have people whose future now is also being stymied and prevented. So think about how you can help, how you can be involved, and how you can spread the message.
Right.
All right. And on that note, we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you, Arthur, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
That's our show this week. We hope you found it useful. Please follow us on social media. We'll talk to you next week.